to share and one visual to go along with it that we can hit really quickly off the top and then get into a conversation. So we'll speak for about 30 minutes together and then open it up for questions so that we can have a more dynamic engagement with you. So the big implications for you. Why don't we start to my right with Patrick?
Hope you can hear me. I was told to talk really close to the microphone. So we had a lot of discussion. So wearable technology, we're talking about human augmentation. It's something we've done for a long time. It's something we will continue to do. It's how we expand our capabilities with technology. You look here, this is something a little old, but the calculator or watch, it's wearable technology. It's something we use to expand our capabilities for math, and I wear on my wrist. I would say, this doesn't have a great social implication. So why is that? Why is the calculator watch different, perceived different socially than more modern wearable technology? I guess something like Google Glass. And I think there's a few big reasons here. One is the wearable technologies we're talking about. It's more of a subset of human augmentation that basically attaches to our digital world, keep us always connected. I think they also have the capabilities of sitting in between us and the physical world so that as we experience the physical world, it's going through a filter. And three, it can give me the capabilities of bringing other people into the digital world, whether I ask them to or not. So when we're talking about this digital world, it's this place that is becoming much more important to us. It's becoming a place that some people find easier to be in. It's a place that some people find more comfortable to be in. And one of the reasons for that comfort is that you have the capabilities of curating, who you are, what your digital persona is. I can pick and choose and filter what I want to represent me in this digital world. And for example, you go to a concert and you see a lot of people watching the concert through their phones. And why is that? It's because they're willing to. One reason is that they're willing to give up a little bit of the physical experience in order to, lay claim to say, hey, I was at this concert, and add it to their digital persona and make sure that they are associated with, if they think this is a cool place to be, that they are represented by that in the digital world. And I think, we have to come up with some, we have to give two implications. So the first one I'd say is, I think there's a little bit of social pushback on this importance that we are giving to this online persona, this digital persona, this curated thing that we're creating. I think there's a little bit of authenticity that's lost, and I think we all want that authenticity and that physicality, and we want to keep it relevant. And the second thing is, when we're talking about technology that allows me to bring someone else into the digital world, whether they've asked to be in it or not, I think that makes all of us a little uncomfortable because it removes our ability to filter that, and it removes our ability to edit that down to what exactly we want. So I'd say in a way, maybe we fear this technology a little bit because it's providing it's giving a more honest version of ourselves online.
Timothy.
I'm good.
I appreciate that.
I love this slide. So this is a slide that we put together for a deck that I give about glass design principles. And there's 5 of them, and I present them to glass developers to help them kind of contextualize and find the right paradigm for their work on glass. And this slide represents building for people, which I think is really key in wearable computing. And let me give you an example. The keyboard on your laptop and on your desktop, many of you probably already know this, that layout was designed to make you type slower. And the reason is because it was designed at a time where there were mechanical typewriters. If you typed too fast, they would jam. So you actually wanted the typist to type slower so that wouldn't happen. And that's an example of a design and technology that's kept with us, that's familiar and we're going to keep, but was originally designed more with the machine in mind than with the person. And I think the difference in wearable computing is that it's transformative technology where we now really have the opportunity to first design for people specifically. And that's why I really like this slide, because this is where our users, right, when we're building this technology, this is where they use it. It's where they live, not behind their desk or looking down at their phone. This is them looking up and experiencing their life. And when wearable computing is done right, it gives them all the benefit of technology that we love, but doesn't get in the way of their life.
Thank you. And Harry, I know that you come at this from a brand, or thinking about the brands and how consumers can better sort of receive information.
I look at it from an advertising perspective. Number one, I feel like as an advertiser, we're always early adopters. But at the same time, we tend to be skeptics too. How does it work with our brands? How does it work for our clients? What is the ROI? What is the, all the things that our clients will be asking of us beyond the fact that we think that it's a cool piece of technology. And it's not have Google Glass, but I still wonder, and ask questions of how does this work for my client really? Because I have to answer that question for them when they ask me. Yes, I have the picture of the laughing man from Ghost in the Shell. And I use this from an example of he took augmented reality and hacked it in order to block anybody who had the technology from seeing his face so he was going to rob and become a criminal. And I put on Google Glass and I was like, oh, we're here. We're at the moment where Ghost in the Shell can actually come to life. Because once it's wearable inside of the world, I feel like there's some degree of hackability that is inherent with wearable technology. And I think that's something as clients and as agencies, we tend to always try to look at them in respect to, especially with putting our brands out there in that space. So as much as I love and embrace technology in all forms when it comes out, I always try to look at it from the lens of always being from skeptic, but also what is the benefit and how can we be first to some degree there.
So what does that mean for the way you think about working with your clients? Are you all trying to, or what are some more compelling experiences that you're thinking about in terms of creating something that works for people, a world of wearable?
Yeah, I use an example. Like we have a client here, and I was with them this morning. It's Pinball. If anybody's been to the Pinball and Nintendo Mario Kart experience, it's kind of cool. And I'm putting on my helmet, and the clients walked up to me and asked me to my face, how can we use Google Glass here? I'm like, what do you mean? He said, we have cameras and we're shooting the cars, but I would love to be able to shoot first-person perspective. How would we do that? And I'm like, you know what? I'm doing a panel at 3:30. That's a good question. And that's something, and for me, having these pieces of technology, those are the things that I want to be able to go back to and say, this is how we can integrate you into the experience, or how you can be a part of the user experience, because now it's about the user first, versus how does the brand overlay over the user's world. You're already, the minute they turn on Glass and they go and craft, you're automatically part of their experience. So how are you relevant to them at that moment?
So Patrick, it strikes me that you are kind of skeptical about the fact that our experiences are now going to be mediated with devices, or mediated with through, or having to sort of cross the lens of the wearable first. Are you? What?
Yeah, I guess when I'm thinking of advertising and wearable technologies that filter, what's in the physical world from us, I think it can go both ways. One is, we can talk about, we can have branded everything, or I as the wearer can say I don't want branded anything. So I think when we think about advertising with wearable technologies, we have to think about a world where consumers have more access to filtering capabilities. So kind of like the DVR allows me to skip all the commercials, I can also record the commercials during the Super Bowl if I think that they are worth watching. So I think, as we're thinking about advertising with this ability to filter or pull in what we want, we have to make sure that all the advertising we are creating is compelling and people want to see it and people want to engage with it.
How do you think it changes, and this is for your team, how do you think this changes the way we relate to one another?
The advertising in particular? Or
No, we're broadening this out.
I think many of you may know that we did this Explorer program. We're still in it right now.
And some of them are out there.
And so there's some Explorers here. I love them. And the reason we did this was to have this conversation, because I don't think technology changes how people behave. People change how people behave. And technology might give you more options, but it's really your choice what you do with it. And I think having that conversation together, right, and more than the reason we did it as Google is that we didn't want to just have that conversation internally. We wanted to have it with everybody that wanted to be an early part of this and it could help us navigate and figure that out. So as far as like how it interacts with us, like the first time I got a glass, it was like having conversations with my girlfriend, about like, do I wear it on a date, or do I leave it home for the date? I watch theater a lot, and in theater they don't let you have sort of cameras out of your pocket. So I put a glass in my pocket, or I leave it back at home when I do that. These are all sort of choices we make to figure these things out. Another great example is the Walkman, right? And we were talking about this earlier. It's like when technology is introduced, lots of questions are asked, so we tend to forget those questions once it becomes normal.
Right, we overestimate technology in the short term and underestimate it in the long term.
That's exactly right. And like, you wouldn't ask this question, but like, if we were having a conversation and I was wearing headphones, I'd take them out, right? And that's a choice that you make on that particular technology. And I think there are similar sort of questions and answers that we're still figuring out for all wearable computing, including stuff like glass.
So I'd say, I think choice is interesting. I think we just have to be careful because as the wearer, I can make the choice, but as someone who's being viewed, do I have a choice? Do I have a choice to say, no, I don't want to be recorded? And I'm not saying, Google Glass was created to record everyone. I'm just thinking, with wearable technology, we have to make sure that the choice isn't just in the wearer, but also people that are being affected by it.
And that actually leads to a really interesting policy question, right? So should policy and regulation will always be behind technology, right? But whenever there is regulation or there's policies designed around this, should policy protect the freedom of the people in the room, or should it protect the freedom of the wearer, right? Of the wearable camera or a device like glass.
And it's, sorry, there's, I just wanted to mention, because this is much like the Walkman, like the same question came out about the Polaroid camera, which was, when it was introduced, I think there was one beach in New York where they banned the camera for a while because they didn't know if they wanted cameras on the beach. And then, we evolved and sort of like figured out, so, well, you can have a camera on the beach and still not have your picture taken, right? So there's choice to be had there as well.
Yeah, I think that right policy should work for both parties. I feel like as long as there's the ability to, and use photographs, as long as there's the ability to take photographs, there's always going to be a set of people that would never, I'm not going to take people now. There will always be that group of people that won't ask permission to do anything. And, those are the, those are the kind of skeptics for me. I mean, I feel like that's the part where I feel like, the laws don't really do justice. When you look at like the Dax and his wife arguing about two of them, celebrity kids snapping photographs. I think as long as there's the ability for somebody to take a picture of you, there is no, it's polite to ask, but, we snap pictures of things all the time with people and we don't ask.
Is there then a degree of inevitability to all of this? Are we it's not mainstream yet, but the fact that we're talking about it means that we're kind of already there. What do you think?
Well, I just to emphasize one of Patrick's earlier points, I think wearable computing is mainstream, just not all kinds of it yet, right? Like, how long has the calculator watch been around, or wearing a Nike fuel band? I mean, all this stuff is increasingly common.
I definitely think it's another one. I don't think I have any doubt that we will continue to advance ourselves and augment ourselves with wearable technology. I think it's just the next step, I guess, in human evolution.
I think the first digital watch to the first Walkman to the first job that said, hey, my cell phone looks really good strapped to my belt. I think wearable technology will always be something that we will accept.
And it strikes me, and we're talking about this in the panel prep, it strikes me as a point in which we are at a point in which we really need it, because sort of manually interacting with rectangles isn't working for us, because there are so many apps that we need to work with, or so many sort of tools that we need to perform by pressing buttons.
Well, and technology can give us so much, right? Like, I love my tablet and my phone, and there's things that I would do on those that it's perfect for. Like, browsing the internet. I love doing it on my phone when I'm riding a bus. But when I'm on my bike, I use glass to sort of track my ride and help coach me and become a better cyclist. And I would that's the thing about wearable computing, is like, once I had glass on the bike, I'm just like, I'm never going to ride my bike without glass again. It's just so useful. Like, why would I?
Yeah, I would say I think there's also going to be a next step, right? I think we are, in a way, the bottleneck on how much information we can bring in and how much information we can put out. And our eye is great for seeing directions, but there's going to come a point where we're going to need to advance to other ways of pulling in all this information, brain implants and things of that nature. We talked about contact lenses, tell you all kinds of data. So and I do believe that. I believe that we are the bottleneck, and we will continue to figure out ways to have the information we need and filter out the information.
Well, I think to Lisa's point, that information to us is maybe the bottleneck is from retrieving information. It's that mediation between the device and us. It's in some ways the human-computer interaction design of the device. Right? So, for example, with a keyboard, and typing on a cell phone keyboard takes a while. Speaking something out loud doesn't take as much time as that.
But that's where I get into the confidentiality of things. I have clients I will never openly say an email. It's going to happen. It's the security issue. I feel like, there's almost like it to where, TV came out or digital magazines. It's like, oh my God, print is dead. Print didn't die. TV didn't go away. When radio came out, every time there's a new technology, we all go to the mountaintop and scream something else is going to go away because this is here. And there's room for all of it. That the tablet is not my phone. It is also not my computer. It's a completely separate space. And wearable technology will, to me, I would say it frankly, I don't think it will ever replace an email. I don't want, some things I actually want to read. There are books I actually go out and still buy because I want to buy a book, not because I want to carry 1,000 books in my pocket. There's some things that have value that go beyond this technology. I feel like we come here and we always say, oh God, this is new app, it's going to replace how I talk to my friends. There's nothing better than actually taking an off-free class or having that's what you have to say, if you're going to go on a date and take them or not. There's a moment where technology should take a backseat to personal interaction. And I feel like we always come here and we go almost to the full throttle of saying, technology is going to save us all. And this is gone, look how easy my life is. And I like it to, before I grew up in the era before, I remember my first Mac. When email was new, and it became, oh my God, I have to go check my emails at my desktop. And then you got a mobile phone, like, oh my God, I can check my emails in my pocket. Oh, somebody sent me, it became, the more technology got, the more urgent the world became. We made that choice for ourselves. And we made it more personal for us to interact with. I can send you a text versus call me. Why you call me, just send me a text. And now with call, I just send you a picture of my glass. But at the end of the day, there's nothing better than a good old-fashioned conversation or a good old-fashioned humor or a good old-fashioned book. And I feel like as much as we celebrate our technology, I think there's also a balance that we need to strike between the real world that we all kind of really function in. And I mean, I feel like there are more people with just eyes and glass in the room right now, and the world that we embrace as far as what the digital future is.
That actually goes back to your earlier point, Patrick, about how you think that there might be a backlash in favor of the physical world. Say more about that.
I think we still, like you said, I think we hold some value to physicality. We think of it as authentic. And I think we see these things purely digital as less real because we have the capabilities of augmenting them, curating them to the way that we want them to be. But, I don't know if it's right or wrong that we hold the value of physical things in a higher way, but, when I go to, like you said, buy a book, or when I go to buy a record, I enjoy, for some reason, the experience of, the ritual of listening to that record, listening to the song, instead of the MP3s that came with it for free. There's something different there. It's almost like we value things that you had to work for, right? Like the things that require a ritual or an effort to make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, I went through I love MP3s, I was like for the bachelor now, I love the works of quality. It's like we accepted that we would hear less music, but we got it faster. But I do love the fact that you go to a concert, people hold their phone, and you realize that the person in the phone was this big, and you're like, oh my God, I went to a concert, it was great. Did you see what I saw? I was like, no, actually, I didn't see what you saw. This person, it's like a thumbnail. The one thing I do, because I've been playing with these for a while, I do respect the Google Glass experience, is that I do like the fact that my perspective is almost one-to-one. And it does take it to a different perspective that my mobile device is going to do. But I also like the fact that this side has nothing on it. That allows me to actually take in a very real, I'll call it the real 3D world where I can actually see and touch things that are meaningful to me, and I can actually not look through this
So Tiffany, that makes me curious actually. So how does the place we wear a wearable physically on our body affect our experiences? So we're talking about glass specifically, but that versus say a wearable camera on my lapel versus a watch versus becoming contact lens. Do y'all think through sort of the placement of the wearable and how that's
Absolutely. You know, and I think there's two big things to consider. Is one of them is the functionality of the wearable, and the other is the fashion, right? Which is important because we're wearing it, right? And the functionality is you know, for example, with something I wear on my wrist, like I still got it kind of down there. Where with glass, I can keep my head up and I can just briefly glance at it. It's a very different kind of interaction. And it allows for different sorts of experiences. So I mentioned earlier riding my bike. And when I'm on my bike and I'm looking in front of me, I don't want to look far away, right? And so just a glance up makes that possible. So for something like that, glass makes a lot of sense. But with fashion, some people maybe aren't used to eyeglasses. They don't want to wear anything right here, but they like to watch. So maybe a watch is a good thing for them. It really depends both on what you're trying to get out of it, but also maybe what you're saying about it. For example, like my field that we were looking at this earlier, I just have to run kind of pretty rose gold because I think it's pretty, right? You know, and part of this is expression. Like my glass is sky blue. It's my favorite color, right? And that's a choice that I made.
So let's turn us back to the privacy implication because I feel like we touched on it and then we couldn't get further into it. And one question that I have is that there's a lot of folks who say people under 30 are okay with the fact and quite savvy about the fact that we're constantly sharing, transmitting, downloading data. And what is emerging, if that is true, is differences internationally in terms of our notions about privacy, right? So what happens if our society is cool with the fact that people are wearing wearable cameras or wearing glass and taking photos like Perry did without asking for permission? What happens across borders, like with Europeans, for example? You have a totally different notion of privacy. Anybody can speak? I wasn't here to stump you. Yeah, I was just thinking out loud.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll add something here. I think privacy is a really important conversation to have, and I'll just like to come back to like privacy means different things to different people, and it's something we all got to figure out together. It's really hard to give any one answer, but privacy is this, or this is the right way to do things. We all live in different levels of communities, and we all make those choices collectively. I think what's really important is to make sure that we continue to have sort of like an open conversation and discourse about it. Like, what are the actual implications of this new technology, and how do we as a group choose to use it or not use it? In the case of Perry, in like this situation, like taking a photo without like asking permission, like I think that's accepted as sort of a cultural thing. I don't know if I've been to a South by panel this year where somebody didn't start out with, hold on, I gotta take a picture of this cool audience. But if you're hanging out with your friends and like you're out rock climbing, you probably ask your buddy first, like, can I take a picture of you while you're out on rock?
Yeah. And I think privacy, it's more than that. I mean, there's a moment where it becomes what do you allow people to experience with you? You get content on video. Now, I know that, in the production side, we walk around with release forms all day long when we film things because we know that there are people that don't want to be associated with brands. Others do. And we have to ask that permission before we put them in that position. And that's how I look at it from. It's not just when I'm with my friends, there is a certain latitude that you get with them to be able to include them in their social experience. But when you start talking about brands and in particular stances that brands have, then it takes on a completely different meaning. And I think that there are people that get viscerally upset to be included in something that they might not want to be included in.
Right. Well, you're talking specifically about advertising a product, but what happens in the days that, or in the coming days when I go into a store and the store knows, let's say I go into anthropology or something, the store knows that last year I spent $7,000 in anthropology and I like to wear this sort of stuff. And
I was like, if you have a discount card in your pocket or your wallet, you already gave that up. You gave that information to farm about.
You know,
That's almost seems like another argument. You get 20% off when you have a credit card in your pocket, you gave that up years ago. So that to me is like, that conversation is almost old. And it's not, I mean, I didn't say it that way, but it is. It's like we complain about it now, but we already gave it. You can't get it back. They already know where you live. They already know, you go shopping, you go to the next page of the banner. You're like, oh my goodness, they found me. Well, you kind of gave them that. You gave them that permission. You know, and that to me is, I think we need to elevate the conversation above that, because brands and products have been doing that for as long as I can remember. I mean, you went home and you got the mailer, for your CVS store. You're like, man, how did they know? There's a sale coming. You already gave that up, and you go into the digital space and you have spam. Your privacy is already gone.
Yeah, I think there's a certain expectation on what the data will be used for, or what my image will be used for. And also giving the consumer a reason to give that information. So in that case, I love my discounts at the grocery store, and I guess privacy and security we talk about. I guess it bothers me that I'm being recorded by the government and they're seeing what I'm doing and things of that nature. But I don't think it bothers me as much as, and I don't think it bothers us as much as knowing that a picture may be taken of us that will tarnish our digital persona in some way.
I use this as an example. Remember when Facebook took your photographs and used them in ads? Anybody remember that? And who logged on Facebook? Anybody put Facebook over there? Huh? Okay, but I mean, think about it though. When it came out, did anybody say I'm out? Anybody here immediately logged off Facebook until they changed it? Did everybody just complain? I mean, that's an open question.
People did. I know people who did it. Yeah.
But I think that to me is like the bigger thing. I mean, if everybody in the room had immediately said I quit Facebook, that would have been a much more urgent conversation about privacy. Everybody complained, everybody talked about it, but I bet half the room still stayed on it. I know I did.
Yeah, I agree, and that's what I'd say that's the case. When we're worried about privacy and we're saying, the government's watching me, but we go right back and we go browse online. I doubt most of us are using Tor, but if someone's recording me without my, permission, I think I feel more violent because I'm worried that I've lost the control of my digital persona. I've lost the ability to edit. I want to make sure, I think all of us want to make sure our digital personas are, what we want to represent for ourselves. And we're worried when, I get recorded in an uncool place and someone catches a picture of me or I'm checked in somewhere around. And I think that's the real thing that we're worried about as a culture, is that we're getting our digital personas tarnished in some way.
And yet we get so much out of the data that we sort of find out about ourselves, right? So we're talking about sort of wearable technology and the data that we can find out about others, right? The external data, but also wearables promise a lot of internal data, right? Sleep patterns, exercise patterns, and whatnot. So how do you think that's going to break down in terms of how much wearable, the possibilities of data that we get from wearables are going to be sort of for our internal purposes that end up then going to companies and whatnot, and versus data that we'll get for external reasons, such as reputation information when we walk into a room and want to find out more about the people who are in here. Will there be kind of an even split, or do you think we're going to use wearable data or data from wearables for personal purposes?
Just to put a final point on this, I think you're asking the difference between us doing sort of quantified self versus us discovering things about the world and people around us through wearables. And it's an interesting question. It's sort of like maybe it's broad, maybe just not just about wearables, but all technology. I think we all do both, right? Because I'm on Twitter, Facebook, and Google Plus, and I stay up to date with what people post on there. Like that's information I receive about the people around me. I think sometimes like wearables might give me like quicker access to that, right? But that's sort of like the same mechanism. It's almost like what Perry was saying earlier. Like this isn't necessarily a new concept. Though I do think wearables like provide more of the quantified self than if we were just like recording that information in our laptops.
I think both. It's about what what insights can we draw from that data and how can we use it? Because data for data's sake is not very helpful. So it's about getting the